Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Summer of Self-Love. I'm your host, Mia Saenz, and in this episode, you get to meet Tambrelaine Harck. And I met Tambra 10 years ago, and it was on my very first Self-Love Summit. So I had to have her back for this one. So welcome. It's so good to have you, Tambrelaine.
Thank you. I know.
Yeah.
Can you believe it's been 10 years and now we're neighbors?
Yes, I know. So I'm going to fill you guys in because I like to share stuff. Um, she was on my first self-love summit, and then she sang me happy birthday, which is gorgeous, and on one of my YouTube channels, on the Mia Signs one. And we remained friends, and she moved to this island in Washington where I live, but she moved here first and got all settled, and then I moved here not knowing that it was specifically this island, and we're about 5 miles apart. Isn't that cool?
It's amazing. Yeah, I moved here about a year before that birthday that I sang for you.
Yeah.
And yeah, what it just like you called me up one day and I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, so
Where
great.
are you?
So it's so good to have my colleague and friend on this show today because I adore her. We hang out, and I also admire her wisdom. She's a mystic, really deeply into nature. That's so, well, mystics are, but really beautiful. It's fun to watch and observe and to be a part of her life. So I'm so glad you're here, honey.
Thank you.
Yeah. So share with us your first introduction, if you can remember, into self-love. Some people's are dramatic like mine. Some people's are like, well, it sort of went this way. And then I noticed when I looked back on it that bam, here I was. How was
Gosh,
yours?
I think that it's a really challenging thing to find, like the first awareness of it. Um, I my first experience or awareness of self-love is a tricky one to find. I imagine it is for many of us. And um, I guess the background story is the one that kind of paints the picture of it is when I asked my mother about the experience she had of being pregnant with me. I was in my 30s when I asked her this question, but she was in her teens when she was pregnant with me. And my dad wasn't there. He later was there and married, and they were together until recently when he passed away. But her answer is what surprised me, because in my story mind, I had here's my single mother who's barely legal, who has me out of wedlock. That makes me a bastard child. That, in our culture, especially back then, this was in 1960. And there was an onus to it that I bore in my own knowing, but it wasn't projected onto me by anybody I knew. Like anybody who knew the story did not say this about me to me or to others. It was not prevalent, but I knew it. And something in the knowing of that piece of the story, I believed there was something fundamentally unlovable about me. So when I asked my mother this question when I was in my early to mid 30s, and her answer was, what I remember the most is loving this child, loving this pregnancy, loving that this child was a child of love, which is still kind of mind twisting to the part of me that believes the story that was culturally bound. Come on, like lots of people know a different story now. But at that time in the world, in our culture in the United States, that was not okay. And but it was okay for her. And I think that it started to show me those places where I had embodied the belief I was fundamentally unlovable, which meant I couldn't love myself, not truly, if that were true. Does that make sense?
It does. And
Yeah.
I,
And so it was kind of in that contrast that it had me start to say, wow, I may not really even know what love is. Like, what is love? And I don't know that that's the moment where that question started to direct me. But I do know that before that time, I can't really place a, a piece of my own path or my own development or my own spiritual explorations. I can't say that it was ever grounded in love or a curiosity about love before that. And I can say that it absolutely has been ever since. So,
I've known you a long time, and
mhm,
we've had some incredibly deep talks. And I did not realize this. Maybe you had shared it with me, but I didn't. It is
mhm,
like brand new information. And I had the same situation. I was
mhm.
a bastard child in
Right.
early 60s, and
Yeah.
I heard some stuff,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's crazy to think, well, when you were protected and loved by your mother, right? And so was I. I think that was my own saving grace. But wow, I love this that you
Yeah.
experienced this, because I didn't realize. I've been seeking love since I was little, I guess for the same reason, right?
Mhm.
It's trying to find the space that everything is okay within us, and um, some of the things that we heard or that we made up in our own awareness isn't really true. I
Right.
love that about digging into our stories. You're
Mhm.
you're quite a storyteller. I mean, you have
Yeah.
a flair with words, and it's beautiful. So I almost said, tell us a story.
Yeah. So tell us a story.
So
I've
in
been
that,
known to tell a story or two.
you
You're
have,
funny.
and they're great. So in this space of a child, let's take it back for others. There are a lot of people who have stories where they don't believe that they're loved for one reason or another, right? Or that they're
Mhm.
incapable of love. So let's take it back, what you would say or work with someone who has that story, that belief.
Mm. Well, I have worked with people in these situations. You can imagine, as
Yeah.
you know the path too, that when there's something that's intrinsically your own story or path to evolution, your own personal evolution, the other people who have similar experiences in their identity um, kind of seek you out. We, even if you don't hang a banner, like they find you. Um, so I have worked with a lot of people, and what I'd say is that it's always a matter of, I start with who you are and where you've identified that woundedness, because it is a wound to believe or experience yourself as unloved or unlovable, which aren't necessarily the same thing. But the the way you interpret it, the way that it plays out at any given time in your life is the place to start.
Mhm.
I don't think going and looking for, like, now where did this wound come from?
Yeah.
I think that's shadow hunting, and it's very dangerous. It takes us down into dark places that may eventually be explored, um, but they don't. But to go into them on purpose is not necessarily the best way to, or the most rewarding or life affirming way to explore love in particular. So I say the first thing is always a matter of, where is it? Like, where is it now? Like, I had a client I'm thinking of a number of years ago, and I won't say their name, but um, uh, she, I will identify her gender. She was having an extraordinarily difficult time with her relationship with her father, who was still living, and with her brother. Her mother had passed, and she was just in such pain about it. It wasn't the purpose of our working together, mind you, but these things always do come up, and the things that are underpinning muck, you know. And where we started with her was she was feeling the pain of the rejection of her father and brother and the lies they were telling each other about her.
Mm-hmm.
And what we started with was really just starting to experience breathing love. And in the beginning, she was also, she told me this from the very beginning, that she was going to fight me. And I'm like, yeah, bring it on. Not because I'm going to fight you back, but I usually just go, oh, so you want to fight about this, huh? All right, which usually infuriates the person who was really up for a fight. And so we started it, and then the next session, and I gave her a process, and I recorded something unique for her so that she could use the practice. And because I do think practices are integral to us embodying new ways of being in our true selves. And she comes back to the next session, and I ask her, you know, about how she's doing with the practice. She's like, well, I'm not doing that. I'm not breathing love. I don't want to be in love. I don't want a relationship. I don't want a partner, which of course is not at all what the practice was about. Mm-hmm. The practice was to truly just imagine that love is, it's in the ethers, it's in the air we breathe, it's in the water we drink. It is the creation source. It is life. And simply to bring a moment or two of presence multiple times throughout the day, just to say, oh, this breath, that's love. That breath out, that's love. That's it. Nothing more complicated, not looking to the identity stories, not looking for like, I can't be loved, or they didn't love me the way I wanted to, or I loved them with everything I had. Like all those stories we tell are conditions that our personalities and our cultures put on our ideas of love. Those are ideas of love. Love is, I mean, I've been saying it for decades. Love is one, it's just one energy, but it has limitless expressions. And so I was starting with her with simply breathe love in, breathe love out. Breathe love in, breathe love out. Her answer to me after the first week was, I'm not doing that. I don't want a relationship. I'm like, okay. So not at all what we were aiming for, but I didn't take it as a mistake, right? It was new to her. Of course it was foreign. Of course, somebody who was always looking for a fight was going to fight it because this was foreign to her. And then she told me about not a dream. I often work with people with their dreams and dream symbols from their sleeping dreams. I hope like their sleeping dreams, but this was a waking dream. She was in her apartment with the door to the terrace open, and a hummingbird flew in and hovered right in front of her, and then buzzed around and then hovered right in front of her 3 times, and then flew out the room. So she didn't have an openness to breathing love, and yet this enchantment, which is an expression of love, right? One energy, limitless expressions. This enchantment of love paid her a visit, and it softened her. And when we talked about it, she could now start to say, oh, like breathing love for a while until I know what it is in my own identity. Maybe I just breathe the memory of the moment of being visited by a hummingbird. I mean, I've had a lot of experiences with hummingbird. I have never had one come in my house and flutter in my face, like
If you're
ever.
not going outside, then it's got to come to you, right?
Exactly. This was very
Yeah.
intentional waking dream. And um, so that's an example of ways that I have worked with clients with love. And I do it not just from oh, breathe love, breathe love, breathe love. It's like, where are you? Because if we had gone into her story about the torture of being in a relationship with her father, whom she had been the most beloved child, you know, like all of the wound of it would have been a more therapeutic approach. It would have been a talking approach. It wouldn't have been about the energetic shifts and allowances within her to start to soften to how she rejected love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
It's a beautiful experience. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's so funny when you said she came back fighting. I don't have them fight, but I did have one client that I think that this is beautiful because most people don't expect a client to be in disagreement, right? They're like, well, they
Mm-hmm.
hired me as a coach or they're here with me. They obviously want to work with me. It
Right.
took me 3 sessions before this one client came on, and then she came on for 3 years, which was beautiful. But
Mm-hmm.
she said to me on week 2, she said, I came to you to work through shame and I wasn't going to let you in, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel safe and now I am. So that
Mm-hmm.
shift, like your shift with that person about love, it's so powerful to watch people drop their guard, right? And
Mm-hmm.
to allow a beautiful space of love in. And I love how you say it's one energy in
Yeah.
different forms. It's
Mm-hmm.
really beautiful. Um, I've not heard that before, and again, I apologize if you said it to me. You're like you're not
It's
listening.
okay.
You must have been walking out to the beautiful trees in the backyard
Might have
listening
been.
to me.
It's funny that for those of us on Facebook, you know how the memories pop up.
Yeah.
Well, today's memories, there was one from a woman who bought my book. I think when I was doing the first book tour when it first came out, which was I don't know 12 years ago, maybe 13. I think it was 13 years ago, and 2 years after that, she wrote that she was reading the book. She was on a trip and it was the companion she had for her this road trip. And she's like, I just read the chapter on love and it's palpable to me. I can feel that like the words and the feeling just like coming off the pages. I just read that today. I'd forgotten she'd shared that with me.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, how timely, you know, that like because in that book, in that chapter in particular, I go into depth on the love is one energy and it
Yeah.
has limitless expressions.
Yep.
You know, there's divine love and that's limitless.
Mm-hmm.
And there's self love, and that's limitless.
Yeah.
And there's love for another and being loved by another. That's,
In a relationship. Yep.
you know,
Yeah.
that's love.
Yeah.
And with so many different
Right.
expressions. And then there's like the spreading love around the world. Like there's the ways in which we be, not just acts of service. I do think that those are important. I think acts of kindness and
Mm-hmm.
acts of service are essential, and they're essential to me, like appreciating my life. But being love when you're out in the world, that's an even bigger like
Yeah.
way of finding expressions to love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. All right. Share with us. Time goes so fast on these interviews, on these
Yeah.
chats.
Tick, tick, tick.
They're so rich and yummy. Will you share with us 3 self-love tools that
Hmm.
either for yourself or for clients or all of the above?
Hmm. I knew you were going to ask me this, and yet, you know, there's this long pause. So I won't use the one I already talked about because I do think that that's one, but I'll add 3 more. Um, tools. I think of them as practices, so I'll enter it from there.
Yes.
I almost want to pick up my book and go, which things did I say in there on that chapter?
I love the breathing in love as one of the tools, and you shared it. So let's go with that, because that's one of the most powerful
Yeah.
tools that we can
But
gift ourselves, isn't it?
absolutely, absolutely. And you know, if you take it into, and I hadn't studied a lot in the realms of our capacity to shift our genetic makeup, to create embodied healing, like physical changes to the cells of our bodies. There wasn't as much research available to the layman when I was first diving into this as a practice. But if you take the breathing love into an even more physical expression, like if you're a meditator, I'll give it to you as a meditator. If you're a meditator and you place your hands at your heart center, which is not up here and it's not over here on your heart, it's right in the center of your chest. If you place your hands there with just the lightest of touch, like we're not gripping, because love wants, just like any energy, it wants to flow. And now with the breathing, breathe in love. Imagine that the breath flows in and through your arms into your own heart, and from your heart down into your body. And then in up through, because the blood's traveling, the oxygen's traveling through the blood. Like imagine this whole visceral connection of this cycle of breath as it's going. You can't see my hole. It's just like this cycle of breath that it comes in, it goes into the heart, it flows through all parts of the body, it goes back up to the heart, into the lungs, and then it goes out. Now, you'll notice that I'm not saying breathe in love, exhale resistance, breathe in love, exhale disappointment. No, I'm saying keep the flow, love. All of it is love. And here's the tricky thing, as the client I told the story about, the tricky thing is that your ideas of love are going to want to start interjecting. It's like, oh, I'd breathe love into my belly, but it's so round right now. And I don't want it to be that shit. Oh, no, just love. That's all we're doing. We're breathing love into all of it. Like, you know, like I know that you've been like, wow, my hair is curly, but I really liked it long and full. And, you know, like, yes, and I'm breathing love into my hair and into my wonderment as to what it is.
Which I've done.
I bet you have, because otherwise you'd be like, ah. So to take that and just keep exploring with it, right? You could just follow your own instincts with it, your intuition with it, and continue to explore perhaps other ways that breath then opens to other things. Yeah. So that's an extension on the breathing love. A second one
Can I jump in on this? Yeah. So I love that. I also practice that and teach it because our cells are being fed love. You can imagine, like Tambra said, it's like as the oxygen flows through you, so does the love. And as it goes down, and you can watch it go down, say your left side to your foot and back up and around and down again and through your body, however you want to. But it's so beautiful to connect on that I think that's a more powerful tool than most people even realize. It's a very healing tool, and it's a necessary tool. Yeah.
And the advantage, the added benefit of placing your hands on your heart center is that the energetic center that is the heart it is the gateway to this energy. They can all carry it. Like your pinky can carry, can radiate love. That's fine. But this right here, that's the engine for it. And this way you're tapping into a universal ancient access point that lives right here in your flesh and blood and bones and all of it, right? Like it's right there. So
Yeah.
you're just tapping into something both ancient and personal and in this moment, like right now.
Yeah.
And
Beautiful.
some days I will admit, it's just like, this is absurd. Okay, do 2 breaths,
Mm-hmm.
just,
Yeah.
and you can do it before you even get out of bed. If you're one of those that wakes up slowly, if you're like bolting out of the bed, this won't work. But if you wake up slowly, 1 breath, circulate it, exhale. It's that simple.
It's really beautiful. And I think that as people go through this, feel it in your body and how you feel. Um,
Mm.
I put myself to sleep at night. I've trained
Mm.
myself to breathe, take 3 deep breaths in. And as
Mm.
I do it, I'm focusing on that I'm breathing really deep and powerful to rest my body to go to sleep. And usually right after that, I'm conked out.
Yeah. I'm laughing because the next practice I was going to share is so aligned with that, which of course is
Good.
not surprising, because I do think that the times when we are shifting states of consciousness are so very important. They're considered liminal states. We're moving from one place to another. It's just like when you uh, walk you're walking down the sidewalk and you turn into a building, the energy of the building is different. The inside is different than on the sidewalk. The
Yeah.
same is true that when you're shifting states of consciousness, like from waking to sleeping. And it's a beautiful time to invite awareness of love, to invite love itself as the energy to awaken in you, but also to nourish you, to love you. And so I often do this, especially when I am troubled. Like I get myself to remember this, that the act of laying down in my bed to go to sleep for the night, consciously choosing to lay in the arms of love. And then I might hear a song, like there's a beautiful song this musician named Rhiannon has shared with me. And she wrote it with another person while on a trip somewhere in the world. And one was off in nature floating on the sea, and the other one was like walking up in the cliffs or something. And they came back together and they had both written different parts of the same song while they were doing these things. But the lyric of the song is, oh gosh, in the arms of the mother, the great Adriatic mother, in the arms of the mother, I lay down. And she was talking about laying herself down to rest and be held by the sea, by the ocean. So in the arms of the mother, the great Adriatic mother, in the arms of the mother, I lay down. So I might hear that song as I do it. But you use what you use. Like I just saw an eagle, like while I was singing. I was, wait, there's an eagle out the door. So maybe maybe there's a feather that brings you.
Right.
Maybe it's your feeling and sense.
Yeah. What I usually will say to a girlfriend that I love dearly, if they're having not need to relax or to go to sleep or they're not well, I'll just ask them to just release in the arms of an angel. Literally, just feel those wings around them, just holding them ever so lightly. And that's a really beautiful sense too. So whether it's the ocean or whether you're just cradled by angelic wings or in a feather bed with divinity around you, whatever it is, really beautiful. Also, I just was thinking, what a gorgeous way to like put yourself in a rose petal bed with the highest vibration on the planet, right? That we have, and just relax in that. We don't have to actually have all the roses laid out to be able to put ourselves in that space. That's one of the most powerful things about whether you're a meditator or not. You can create the ability to be in that space when you need
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
Beautiful. These are really beautiful, honey.
Mm.
I love these. Thank you
Mm-hmm.
so much. So we are just about at our end here. What would you like to share with us that you haven't so far?
Hmm. I'd like to share this about love in general, which is a weird thing to say or think about, but really so clearly applies to self-love. And to do it, I'm going to quote a friend of mine, Jennifer Orizio from Soul Language. I love it when she says it. She's very pragmatic, and she says, "There's no such thing as unconditional love. Like, there's only love. Like, to make it unconditional implies there's another side." And the reason I'm bringing that up is that I think we have so many ideas, conjurings, either from our thinking or our um, our family of origin, our culture, movies, books, stories we've heard, ideas we have of what other people are experiencing. We have these ideas of what love is. That's not love. That love's not conditional. Love doesn't require transactions. And I observe this with people in relationship, of course, but I observe it with people and with myself, with the expressions of and experiences of self-love having transactions tied to them. Like, oh, I'll do that really wonderful thing for myself, when I meet this goal. Or like, I'll love myself I was saying earlier, like, well, I won't send love to my belly because it's not what I want it to look like right now.
Yeah.
How about your belly might heal?
Benefit from it. Yeah. Yeah.
If
Exactly.
you simply love it.
Yeah.
And that kind of transactional idea, it's an idea, it's a mental construct. Love doesn't operate there. Love doesn't require that you earn it. Like your own love for you, for this mystery and miracle that you be, it requires no transactions. It doesn't require a balancing. It's not. It's whole, and you're whole.
Yeah.
And and maybe I say all of that not to give you anything contained, but rather to plant a seed that maybe you take it into your own journal or into your own contemplation or into your own practices and awarenesses of, oh, wow, I noticed that I'm not loving myself in this way because I think I'm supposed to acquire something else first. Or to prove something or achieve, we're so transactionally oriented, we don't even know that we're putting all of this on our radiant, beautiful selves. And
it's interesting that you brought up the unconditional love has no conditions on it, for love. And my story quite well. And I haven't heard that from you before. Thank you in a sense that you knew I was on a journey to find unconditional love. And what happened was first it was the dog that came. But what I recognize now talking through this, listening with you and talking, is what I found was myself, which was just a deeper level of love that I needed to go in order to be or experience what I wanted as the unconditional love. And that was just a depth within myself to open up to just another layer of what love possibilities are, right, for me. So I'm glad you brought that up because I've never thought of it that way. And the beautiful absolute. Of course, there's no conditions on love.
Right. Right.
Love
So
is
unconditional love,
love.
like, and the unconditional part is an unnecessary word. Let's
Yes,
just
yes,
not even apply it.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I love that. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. It was awesome to have you. Yes,
Hey, it's
yes,
been wonderful. Thank you again for inviting me. It's our 10-year anniversary.
that's right. We have an anniversary. I love it. And thank you all for joining us for this episode. I appreciate it. Bye.
Mm.